Your philosophy talk is great, but what are some of your favorite works on fiction? That's from T.L. Weisman. Now, here's the thing. I don't read a lot of fiction, okay? Now, I have read some fiction, and it's something that I'm quite weak on, okay? But one of my favorite books of all time is Lord of the Flies. Now, if you never read Lord of the Flies, please watch the movie at least. The movie doesn't do it justice, of course. The book is always better. But one day I was trying to teach my wife, I was trying to make her understand how the world works. And I made her watch Lord of the Flies. And after she watched Lord of the Flies, I still don't think she understood what Lord of the Flies means. Because you see, I love my wife. She's a sweet woman, very sweet woman, very innocent, okay, to the ways of the world. Like, how can I tell you? Like, my wife, she lives my wife and daughter, okay? My wife and daughter, they live on a silk pillow. They live in a bubble. Why? Because any harm that comes their way, I throw my body in the tracks. I make my sons feel pain every day. I don't let my sons eat croissant. You know, croissant is it's like a luxurious bread. They fold it in fat and they fold it and they bake it and it becomes very fluffy and it's very delicious. It's very calorically dense and it's light it tastes like air. It melts in your mouth. You put it in your mouth, it melts. And my sons are half French, but I forbid them. I don't allow them to eat croissant. But why do we have croissant in the house? Well, my wife likes croissant. And my daughter likes to eat croissant. What's croissant? Croissant, as you guys say in English, it's a fluffy, high-calorie bread that tastes like a cloud. It's delicious. But I don't want my sons to eat it. Why? Why the hell would a young man eat croissant? I tell my sons, after you get your black belt or you earn your first million, then you can have... I make fun of them when they ask for... I make fun of them. Stop eating these luxurious foods. Why? It's going to pollute your palate. It's going to make you soft. I think my sons will become weak. I think... I hate to say it. I know I sound a little bit... I understand how I sound. I sound like I'm crazy. I totally get it. But, he's young and he eats croissant. And he takes luxurious flights. And he sits in this beautiful hotel room. And he takes these all-access passes. And he goes to Walt Disneyland. And no. I don't like that. I like him to eat regular food, train all day. I want to build his mind to be strong. I talk to them about reason, logic, training, fitness, and then once you achieve a certain status, I'll let you have a croissant. But for now, your life is just plain old oatmeal with a taste of honey. Normal. I don't give them gruel like they gave they gave the Spartans. They used to give them like a blood pudding. Supposedly very disgusting, bitter, but that's what they gave them. If you wanted something better, you had to steal it. Think about this. The Spartans, if they wanted to eat something more tasty, they had to steal it. And if they got caught stealing, they were punished severely. Severely, even to the point of death. They could be killed for stealing. However, if they stole successfully, your reward is you were not punished. You got the spoils of a successful thief. Now, I'm not that extreme. I don't put my sons to the agoge. You know, the agoge is when the Spartans were, at usually the age of 8, sent out to become cadets, Spartan cadets, which is brutal, nasty. I remind you that Aristotle likened them to animals. He didn't think the Spartans were human beings. If you read what they would do, the Spartans would do, it was vicious. Vicious is not the word. I'm not going to get into it, agoge now, but they were horrendously vicious. Now, am I like that with my sons? No, I'm not like that. But also, I don't want them eating croissants. You guys get what I'm saying. I like them to have the hard life. Now, back to the Lord of the Flies. You see, especially when you have a government job. I live in a socialist country where if you have a government job, even if you're bad at your job, you don't lose your job. Why? You're protected by all this bureaucracy. If they want to get rid of you, they can't. So you could be lazy, you could cut corners, you could have the poorest abilities, and they still got to keep you on the payroll. Why? Because it's democracy. Everybody gets a vote, and you can't touch us. The government's got to pay me. I'm old. I'm living in a gated community, so to speak. There is no savages. I don't have to meet the savages in the real world. Whereas if you're in a business, I don't know, maybe you own a restaurant, maybe you own a clothing store, Maybe you own whatever business. You have to compete. If you're not one of the best in the market, you will go out of business. And guess what? You're out in the street. There is no government safety net. There is no bureaucracy to protect you. If you're in the business world, you better be one of the best if you want to survive, because people are always trying to copy you, find a way to do what you're doing, take from you. We're always competing with one another. We're in the Lord of the Flies realm. Now, the Lord of the Flies, for those of you who don't know the story, it's about a bunch of kids. They're in an airplane crash. They get shipwrecked on an island, so to speak. And now there's no adult supervision. Now, when you're a child, don't forget, when you're a child, you live in a type of communism. Everything is shared. I don't have to provide for myself. Food, if I cry, food comes. If I cry, warmth comes. I don't have to go out and hustle in the world. I don't have to go out in the world and compete. All I got to do is sit here, be cute. If I poo myself, somebody's going to come and clean it up. If I if I trip and fall, people think it's cute. They pick me up, kiss me, hug me. Life is so grandiose. I live in a world where all my needs are catered to. That's what it is as a child. Your needs are catered to. And then what happens? Quickly, you fall into adulthood. All of a sudden, you got to fend for yourself. There's a rude awakening. Now, these kids are on the airplane. They're going to play soccer, or I can't remember, it was cricket or whatever it was. They crash. They're on the island. Now, all of a sudden, they got to fend from themselves. They went from hot water to cold water. They went from childhood to manhood. And all of a sudden, first they're orderly cadets. And then there starts to become infighting. One of the group leader, the original group leader, he's not ready to hunt boar. One of his followers is ready to hunt boar. He's ready to go out there and take a posse and go out in the woods and hunt boar. Now, the leader, Ralph, if I remember his name correctly, he was timid to go and hunt boar. He was like, no, we're not going to hunt boar. We're going to play it safe. We're going to be by the coastline. And he was a very rational guy. And no, we want flesh. We want to eat. We're hungry. We don't want these fruits anymore. We want to go out in the world and take our chances. So what happens? They start to defect. Much like New Wave and B-Team. Oh, no, you think like this. I think like that. Boom, defection. Boom, a rift, a sect. Guys, that's history over and over and over again. What happened after Alexander the Great died? A few minutes later, they were already fighting about who's next in charge. The kingdom, the empire broke apart. Why? They couldn't decide on the successor. It happens to every age, every civilization. It happens to us all the time at every level, the highest level to the lowest level. And that's the story as old as time. One group says we should go and hunt boar. The other one says no. And he was successful in hunting boar. Now all of a sudden his group becomes very resourceful. Now all of a sudden Ralph has more and more defectors. All of a sudden they're killing one another. And that's the story of the real world. It was just a microcosm of the real world. And the story ends with them like in a civil war, about to kill one another. And a soldier ends up on the shores and sees it. What are you kids mad? He catches them about to kill one another and he stops it. And they snap back into reality. They were in a type of hypnosis. Remember, they were on an island. So that island became their entire world. They forgot about civilization. They forgot about the rules they were taught. Now it was kill or be killed, resources, fending fending each other off, fighting for survival. They were now out in the business world, the world of limited resource, fighting for position. And then all of a sudden, a soldier discovers them, finds them in the middle of battle, and they snap out of it. And all of a sudden, they realize, hey, this guy now is in charge. We have no recourse against him. Resources now are going to be provided. Like, they snapped out of it. They went from one world back into the other. First, they were in the communist type sleep. Then they landed in the capitalist type thinking where resources are whoever can get it, he owns it. And then went back to their childhood in an instant. And then you think about it, that guy was a soldier. That guy was on his way to do battle. This takes place around, I think it was like, not World War II, but a little bit after that. Like, I can't remember which war it was. I think Vietnam War or whatnot. That soldier was actually living on the big island which is the world, where the big boys fight for resources, and they're, the world itself, all the countries are against one another. It's the Lord of the Flies, but on a macro scale. That soldier was looking at those kids and thought it was preposterous what they're doing. But he's really doing the same thing they're doing. He's a soldier on patrol, and he's actually just stumbled on these kids, and these kids were thought to be lost and shipwrecked. They thought they were miles and miles away, but it turns out he found them by happenstance. And and the author basically is trying to make you realize, look, we're doing the same thing, but on a macro scale, we're just as crazy as those kids. Fantastic story, fictional story. Must learn. I think all kids should read Lord of the Flies to understand the ways of the world. And Lord of the Flies is what everybody pretty much lives, except if you live in a government job where incompetence is considered okay. You can have the worst abilities, but if you work for the government, it's I won't say it's impossible. It's very difficult to get rid of you. Very difficult. Why? Because, they have certain bodies in place that protect the rights. But really, it's just, one time in Toronto, there was a need for a staircase. So a gentleman said, you know what, I'm going to build a staircase myself. I'm not going to go to the city. The city takes too long, takes too much resources. The city's just too slow. He hired a homeless man. They wrote an article about this. He hired a homeless man to help him build the stairs. I think it cost him like $800 or $1,000. Don't quote me on this. I'm missing the exact details. But I remember the city tore it down because the guy doesn't have the right to build it. And they rebuilt it for him. They rebuilt it for the city. And it cost somewhere of $60,000. The difference in price was astronomical. Why? Well, if you want me to pass this, look, there's so much bureaucracy we have to get through just to build a little staircase. That we have to talk to so many people, we have to shuffle so many papers that a lot of people got to get paid just for us to build fix this little tiny little problem. That's bureaucracy. It's not privatized. These are subjects I can't get into too deeply right now because I'll be rambling on for an hour. There's a lot to know, but basically, look, government is good, but it also has weaknesses. Everything has good and bad, gentlemen. That's why I want you to start seeing the world. There's good and there's bad. Is jiu-jitsu good? Yeah, well, jiu-jitsu is good and there's some bad in jiu-jitsu. Is striking good? Yes, there's good and bad. Everything has some positives and negatives, and vast majority of things have good and bad in them. And we got to learn to see them that way.